Another way that I've worked on infusing the values into the classroom is through yoga. So we worked on creating almost like a vinyasa, so a sequence of movements that was like commentary on the text. So we would read a line of the text and then do the movement that would go along with it. It was yoga that was integrated into the Jewish values class as opposed to a Jewish value integrated into a yoga class. I want to tell you a story about a student I'll call Molly and a student I'll call Rebecca. So Molly was having a lot of trouble with Rebecca, and she would get 0 to 60 angry at Rebecca. And she would sort of lash out at her. She would have a really hard time recovering from that incident. And it wasn't really the culture of our classroom to do it that way or to shut down for another hour after an incident or something. Like normally kids sort of will go with the flow and they'd work with someone else or whatever, but she wasn't. So we sat together and had lunch, and sorry, I'm doing this one first. And from the Teaching Jewish Virtues book, I found this text because I looked up the specific, I can't remember what it was exactly, but I looked up the specific idea that I wanted to explore, and I came up with this Pirkei Avot text. So we studied it together. So there are 4 types of temperaments: easy to anger and easy to appease, hard to anger and hard to appease, easy to anger and hard to appease, and hard to anger and easy to appease.
So you may have said this, but were you saying this just specifically with the 2 kids or the whole class?
Just Molly. Over lunch, because it was really her challenge to work on. And then the other girl had her own challenges, but we were working on it separately. But I just sat with Molly. And I had a good relationship with her, and it was natural for me to be able to bring out a Jewish text to look at. So I told her that this was a Jewish text and where it came from, and we talked about, that we learned a little bit about Pirkei Avot. And I said, which temperament are you? And she said, easy to anger and hard to appease. And I said, which one do you want to be? And she said, hard to anger and easy to appease. And so then from there, our conversation could move towards action steps. What are you going to do to work on this to get to what you want to be? And then she went home, she told her mom about this conversation and how we were going to be working on this together. I also want to tell a story about my 7th grade wellness class a couple years ago. And a couple of the girls came to me and said, we're having all these issues with cliques. It's nothing that I would bring up on my own, It's a topic that I think a lot of teachers are like, I want nothing to do with those conversations with my class. Scary. So it was about January, I think, so halfway through the year, and I felt ready to really talk about this question. They'd brought it up earlier in the year, and I wasn't quite ready to have a whole group discussion about it. Some of the girls said that one particular clique group that had a clique name were putting I am away messages that were mean because they were exclusive. And only the girls in a particular clique would understand what those messages meant, or they'd just put up their clique name. And so I said to them, well, we've been working on being assertive, you've been learning specific skills of how to be assertive, here's your opportunity, and I'm going to structure the class so that it will lead to an opportunity for you to bring this up as a concern, and then we can open it up to the whole class. So they ended up saying the clique name, which was against our class norm, so girls started like hysterically crying, and they were embarrassed, and one girl sort of defensively shouted out, we all know who everyone's friends are. I have my friends, they have their friends, everyone has their own friends, so what's the problem? So I was like, well, have you heard Alti Frosh Mina Sibor? And they were like, huh? No. And so we looked at it together, and we don't separate yourself from the community. So I brought this text orally to them in that moment. And I said, so what would happen if we all broke off, you all broke off into your own cliques? And then one of the girls, we won't have a community. And then one girl's like, we only have a year left together. We're going to be 8th graders next year. And they got really upset. And then everyone sort of started moaning, and they got all sad. And I said, no, you have a year and a half left together. let's figure out what we can do now. So every girl went around and said what her hope and dream was. Basically we were focusing on friendship for the rest of their time together. And one girl said, can we all switch seats right now? Because they were, I didn't always know, but they were sitting in their, with their particular BFFs. So they all got up, and it really did change the whole feel of the classroom. It's like I felt different in there, and I was the teacher. Like, I felt relaxed. It really made me believe in the power of using like these pithy, short little texts. So now I'm going to talk about what my classroom looks like when you enter it. So if a stranger walked into my classroom, he or she would know some of the core Jewish values that are being learned. So this is a bulletin board that's currently up in my classroom. And I often post questions on my bulletin board related to the text. And every single seed that's on there has the name of a student, and inside the pomegranate is the name of a faculty or staff member. So that when the kids came to school, not only did they see, and the community came, that there's this Jewish value of doing mitzvot, but also that you're important and that you're recognized. One of the big ideas I want you to walk away with is about that you could teach a specific text or study a specific Jewish, skill or something at a particular point in the year, but to really infuse it into your classroom, you have to sustain it. It has to be on the tip of your tongue all the time and on the tip of your students' tongues so they say it to each other. I did put in an incredible amount of work over the last few years, but now that I've put in all of that work, I'm reaping the rewards this year.
I'm wondering, you're the general studies teacher, you have all this Jewish curriculum that you're infusing in your classroom. Was there tension with, well, when are you teaching, the English and the reading and all the other curricular demands of your time? Was there a trade-off, or how did you?
For myself, or having to defend it to someone else?
Both. Yeah, both.
So, although it seems like it's so much, like I'm spending hours a day, it's not. So a chavruta lesson, maybe I may do 3 in a week, and then I may not do it for a little while, and we'll just be doing the songs and just using the teacher language. I was spending just as much time working on what did I call them? Cooperative group work skills, and I created a whole bulletin board that had active listening and staying on task and being quiet, and we had all the same charts, what does it look like, what does it sound like, I feel like. Now I feel like it's rooted in something much more important, in our Jewish heritage.